I define Insurtech as where does technology intersect with the insurance industry in ways that are going to improve our efficiencies and effectiveness moving forward. And furthermore, impact the customer and agency experience in very positive ways.
This is the Insurance Technology Podcast, where we bring interesting people from across the insurance ecosystem to discuss and debate technology's impact on the industry. Join us each episode for insights and best practices from industry stewards and tomorrow's innovators. Now, here's your host, Reid Holsworth.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Insurance Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Reid Holsworth. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to Bobbie Collies. Now, Bobbie, I haven't known for that long, maybe about a year or so, but Bobbie is just a really in tune, smart individual within the industry. Now, Bobbie's a little bit different from the other guests in the past. She's not what I'd consider an OG or a founder of the industry, nor is she a startup, but she kind of is sitting within a carrier and working with all of them. And she has really interesting insights overall about the industry. And look, I mean, frankly, Bobbie's making moves. Bobbie's going to do big things in this industry. She's developing a really big network and she's very well respected. And she lives in Wisconsin and likes to drink beer. That's pretty cool too. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about where the tipping point was in Insurtech, 2015. It's kind of funny that we were discussing this, and it's true. Things really started to happen in 15, and she's been in the thick of it throughout that. And we're going to get an interesting perspective on her, on kind of the Gretzky analogy of following the puck, go where the puck is going, right? And once again, we've heard this for 40 years, but we believe it's true that the next 5 years in this industry are going to be totally different. This is going to be a different industry 5 years from now. And we get into things like better.com and what that looks like and that experience and buying insurance within these ecosystems without any interaction with a person, a human, an agent in that way, and the whole seamless piece of it. Now, a lot of this stuff's been going on in personal lines, but we're going to see it starting to happen. And I shouldn't say that we're going to see it. We're already seeing it starting to happen in commercial lines. But 5 years from now, the technology's there, guys. It's going to be a different industry. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great episode.
Welcome, Bobbie.
Great to be here, Reid.
It's great to have you. So Bobbie, tell us a little bit about yourself. So how did you get into the industry? What side of the world do you live on? Let's start with the industry. How'd you get into insurance and really insurance technology where you're at today?
Yeah, so my roots in insurance come straight out of college. There weren't a lot of job opportunities for a girl with a marketing degree. So I took an underwriting trainee position with Society Insurance in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And I spent a majority of my career in commercial lines until about 2015, 2016, when the word Insurtech started to pop into our industry. And I was put on a large project for another carrier I was working with at the time to focus on what does the future of distribution look like and how does technology, or how will technology impact that? And that was my big leap. I was in an industry for about 15 years at that point where nothing had changed. Right before I left Society, we were still getting carbon copied endorsement changes from some of our agents in Wisconsin. And I saw an opportunity to be able to not only participate in the change, but drive change within our industry. So it's been super exciting and kind of a short time in the distribution and Insurtech side. It's maybe 5 years at this point where I've really invested in it. So it's been really fun though.
I would say, that's really good timing. That's, in my mind, 2015 is really when it started to really pick up, right?
Yeah.
Insurtech's been around for, you could argue 50 years or whatever, right? But really when Insurtech became a thing, it became a word, it became, the events and, innovation labs and all this stuff that's focusing on it. Right. I mean, that's right. About
Yeah.
2014, 2015. So you're right in the beginning of that kind of movement.
Yeah. Well, and when did you launch Tech Canary, Reid?
2013.
2013. Yeah.
Q3 of 13 is when we went live on the App Exchange, 0 customers. So we didn't really get traction until like around that time, around 15 is when we really started ramping, actually. Early days, 14 and then into 15. Yeah. So right around that time.
Yeah. I actually remember trying to get in touch with you and you ignored me for a while. So I didn't actually get to talk to you until you went with Ivan's.
Sorry about that. That's funny.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then what happened? So what did you learn when you started your journey in kind of that world? You've been in insurance for a while, like you said, and now you kind of opened your eyes to this movement, if you will. Right? It's fair to say. It's kind of
yeah, absolutely. So, here's the thing. If you look at a traditional carrier, right, the incremental change is typically what you see out of them, especially if they're producing really good results, right? So they're growing at a decent clip, maybe a little bit higher than market. Loss ratios, combined ratios are good. So there's really not a huge need for them to make any drastic, bold changes. However, one of my passions and one of the things I'm really trying to do is help not only independent agents, but also the carrier that I work for, Grange and Integrity, really try to look over the horizon. And the way technology is impacting our industry and how fast things are changing, we really need to start looking at where is the puck going? Like, skate, if I'm going to steal from Gretzky here, like, let's start to skate where the puck is going, not where it is today. And so just painting that picture of, you talked to Alan and Mike about APIs, right? And having that be the building block of our industry moving forward. And I'm trying to paint that picture for both agents and carriers alike, just to see what's going to be over the horizon. We're going to look a lot different 5 years from now,
It's so true. And I truly believe that. And I've said this a lot within these podcasts. We are really going through a transition right within our industry in a lot of ways. And it's so true with the way that technology is just growing and it's being implemented, and just technology in general, how easy it is to build things these days, with all these various platforms that do different things, low code, no code, blah, 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 blah. But just really many people being involved in modern technology within our industry is pushing it. And, like Mike and Alan, founders of Ask Kodiak, these guys, they were ahead of their time in what they were doing. These guys are just great minds and really pushing that whole API concept. So what do you think? Like, I feel like I say that because it's almost like a broken record. And I feel like people have been saying that for years, like, wow, things are changing, but they actually are. They really are. And the industry is really changing. And we're becoming a very tech forward industry that we haven't been. And if you look back at 2015, like what? I remember in 2015 and 2014, literally explaining to people, training people on what Salesforce was. Like they had no idea. They're like, wait, what is this thing? I don't know anything about it. Like that was 2015. It's not that long ago. Salesforce has been around for a long time. And the API, they didn't even know what it stands for. A lot of people still don't, but they no idea, right? Now this stuff's really starting to happen. What are your thoughts around all that?
Yeah, I think, Reid, a couple of things. I think, to your point, more folks in our industry are trying to educate themselves and understand it because it's become a buzzword and something that's become more real versus, visionary.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece too, and I feel like a broken record when I say this, but the pandemic really forced our industry into being more digital. And I also think it accelerated the rate at which customers want to interact with every single thing that they do from a digital perspective. So as we look at, changing consumer expectations, they just want to do things differently, right? Like I looked at getting a mortgage not too long ago and went on Better, right? And I was able to not only get a pre-approval letter within 15 minutes, but I also got 5 insurance quotes from different companies on this house that I might buy sometime, right? There wasn't even a retail agent involved in that situation. And that's what our industry, and I truly believe in the IA channel, but we have to catch up, right? There's, as a non-insurance person going through that better process, I wouldn't have known what kind of coverages I needed, which is why I believe in having the agents involved, right? But they need to insert themselves into these digital purchasing processes in order to remain relevant moving forward, especially on the stuff that's more commoditized, like personal lines and some small commercial.
It's funny though, but we still have pushback in this industry to things like what you just said, getting 5 quotes instantly, right? There's a lot of carriers out there that don't want that. They want to hold that back, I'm being spreadsheeted or whatever people want to call it. There's all kinds of new words that I hear around all this, right? But they don't, it's like a rating. They don't want to be on Expedia, right? Or Google Flights, if you will. They don't want that whole experience. Why do people push? I mean, you're in carriers. I mean, you're dealing, this world. Why is that bad? I guess, in your opinion, is it bad?
I don't read, it's not bad. And I don't necessarily think that, carriers think it's bad, but and I'm going to steal some lines from Feldcheck on this one. When he presents, he talks about all of the things that carriers need to do on an annual basis, right? And a lot of it is just run rate work. So if carriers are meeting their goals from a growth and profitability perspective, and they're making incremental changes towards the things that are going to make them successful moving forward, making big, bold moves doesn't make sense. And it's really hard to get those types of things prioritized within a big organization, right? So I think in some ways, Insurtech has really helped carriers because the work that they need to do and want to do, but can't get to, Insurtechs are doing on their behalf. Mm-hmm. So, which is great because we don't have the expertise probably, nor the boldness to be able to invest in some of these innovative things and also stack them on top of each other, right? You have Insurtechs that are very micro focused on certain things, like Mike and Alan from Ask Kodak, it's just appetite, right? Mm-hmm. Raghav and team from Tarmica, it's just, small commercial comparative rating. Right. Yep. So they're very micro focused, and those teams are focused on making those experiences the best that they can. So how can carriers pull all of that together, right, and utilize all of this talent without having to fund it themselves?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like
IDP, right? Talk about IDP a little bit and how you guys are working on that to help carriers out.
Oh, I mean, IDP is awesome. We feel that IDP is going to solve a lot of this friction in our industry in so many ways, and it has the potential to solve real problems. It really does, right? And it will enable guys like Raghav and the rest of them, you name them, to be more efficient at what they do and focus on those areas where at the same time, the carrier doesn't have to think about the pipes and maintaining all of these individual connections, right? It really opens up the ecosystem to innovation. But it's funny, the carriers still push back on it. They're like, we're in sales cycles every day on this thing. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really see it. Like, I don't mind, maintaining hundreds of connections and dealing with, vendors coming to me every day to ask you like that. No, it doesn't really save me any time, what? And so, but you're right. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Right. Shareholder value in their minds in the moment doesn't change. But I'll tell you, I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing these digital carriers that are having, very awesome, streamlined digital experience. I'm not going to name names that are coming out. They're coming to market, and they're starting to play at the level of some of the big boys, right? And it's like, why wouldn't you push that and do that? And I get it. It's a lift. It's like, riding the Titanic in some ways. It's the core systems are an issue. I mean, that's another one. We could go down a rabbit hole on that. I'm not going to, but we could. So there's a lot at play there. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not that easy. But I think overall the industry is way more open to it now, and they haven't been even the last few years. But if you talk about commercial lines comparative rating, I mean, look at what was originally CPAS and now is Bolt. Look what they've been doing for how many years, right? Yeah. And they have real markets, real stuff, doing cool shit. And so it's like, this is not new to our industry, but you don't hear about those guys as much. It's nothing against them. I mean, those guys are crushing it in their own way, but it's not hot, sexy. And you don't hear carriers really doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on this. Everybody talks about, hey, we're going digital, we're investing in digital and this, that, and the other, but how serious are they about it? Is it like what AI and blockchain was a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
We're in blockchain. I remember when blockchain was a thing and AI, everybody standing up on stage at ITC, whatever it may be, everybody being, a lot of the big tier ones and tier twos and saying, we're doing this. And it's like, what's come of that? What's happened with that? Right.
Yeah.
Maybe some internally, but so, yeah, I think it is, but it's still not. And I think to your point, it's because it's a monster. And look, as we all run companies, and it's true, we have to make decisions sometimes of like, hey, that's opportunity cost in a lot of ways. And right now we got to figure out how to get our loss ratio fixed. Right. And so there's real problems we have to fix. And sometimes it's easy for guys like me to get up on a soapbox and say, what do you mean you should be investing everything? Like, we still have a business to run, so I get it, but it's just kind of funny. I kind of went off on this tangent because what you said originally was that in 5 years, this industry is going to look very different. And I would argue it's a very different industry from like when you kind of got into the Insurtech side 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Now it's like stuff is really coming to market. I mean, I was doing some mentoring sessions the other day, all these startups, and I literally met with 3 no-code platforms that I've never even heard of, focused on the carrier space in different ways. Like, never even heard of them. Like, the things are popping up everywhere in this. And so, I don't know. So what 5 years, what does 5 years look like? That's kind of a hard question to answer, but how do you think things will change? And then in 5 years from now?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a hard question to answer because I think things are changing so quickly and it's been changing very dynamically, right, Reid? Here's what I'll say. I do think that some of these more digital focused technology first carriers will start to gain some market share. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they'll steal it from the IA channel carriers or from the direct to consumer carriers, but maybe a combination of both, right? A lot of them are going both ways, right? They're going direct to consumer and utilizing the IA channel. Yep. But what I do think is that a lot of the friction will be taken out of the process. So for consumers and for agencies alike. And those that do it well will be successful and continue to gain market share, right? And so when I think about my role at Grange, really it's how do I help our organization and our enterprise place the bets that we want, where we think we're going to be successful and we want to differentiate. Mm-hmm. Earlier, we don't have enough resources or capital to do everything and be everything to everyone. So place our bets accordingly on where we think people, the Insurtechs are going to win and be able to help us gain market share. And in some ways, I think that there will be carriers out there that will be struggling and scrambling to catch up 5 years from now because they have had their heads in the sand a bit. And that's when I think you'll see more things happen on the carrier side, because to my point earlier, many times things are driven by the fear of losing something versus the opportunity of gaining something, right?
There you go. That's it. You hit the nail on the head right there. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And it's polarizing in some ways. And I think you're right. Just be open to it, right? And look at it. But we're all smart business people, make smart business decisions based on that. And like you said before, it's following the puck, right? And seeing where it's going. I say it all the time, stay away from the shiny objects, but it's hard sometimes to figure out what are the shiny objects. Like AI is cool. Like, don't get me wrong, blockchain kind of cool too, right? I hate to bring up that stuff because it's old now. Like people aren't talking about that anymore. right?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Next time you get Alan on a podcast, talk to him about blockchain. I love listening to him opine on that whole topic and how it was going to impact our industry. It's entertaining if you need some entertainment for a little bit.
So how do you define Insurtech?
I define Insurtech as where does technology intersect with the insurance industry in ways that are going to improve our efficiencies and effectiveness moving forward. And furthermore, impact the customer and agency experience in very positive ways, right? Because we've had technology in insurance for a really long time, like green screens and, entering it like that. That was technology we used to do our business. But when we really think about Insurtech, to me, it's what are the technology pieces that are going to revolutionize the way we do our work?
Wow, that was great. Isn't Bobbie awesome? It's interesting to hear when asked what's going to be the biggest impact in 2022. Speaking about technology, she mentions single entry multi-quote. That's something that's been a problem in our industry for 40 years, maybe longer, right? But she says that's going to have the greatest impact in 2022. Really interesting. That means this stuff is really happening. And it's interesting for somebody like Bobbie to say that, who sits at a carrier day in and day out. The reason why that hasn't impacted our industry is because the carriers have pushed back for so many years. Look, the reality is our channel, the IA channel, needs to think about that. They need to think about the customer experience. We need to take bold moves in our industry. Stop focusing on shiny objects and things and solving real problems for the consumer. We've spent a ton of time and money automating our back end with the agency management systems and all of these great products to help with overall operational efficiency. But what about the customer experience? And for her to say that that's happening now in 2022, that's next year, that's an impact on the industry. It's pretty eye-opening. So look, this stuff is coming. Adopt it, get after it, understand it. How are you impacting the customer experience? Really cool stuff. So look, join us next time when we discuss how value propositions need to change with adoption of technology. We're going to get deep on adoption in general within the agencies, right? It's really cool. Stay tuned.